Take 5. Greetings, fellow future community leaders. It has been a real pleasure sharing the semester's learning with you and benefiting from the varied insights you have offered up. My name is Josh Montgomery, and my project is centered around providing locally sourced, healthy eating options for Laramie's youth. Through this work, I have proposed that healthy eating options tend to be difficult to promote to the youth of Laramie, and that we can challenge this through community action that taps stakeholders with a shared goal of better outcomes for our young folks. I start with the idea that poor dietary choices can lead to a lifetime of consequences, and are often determined by circumstances related to income, location, and environment. This work promotes the idea that this is a problem we can solve right here in Laramie using our existing community resources. We promote the idea that a healthy and happy community begins with healthy and happy residents. We can achieve this through ensuring the economical and equitable distribution of locally produced food to our student and vulnerable populations. We intend to tap into existing networks in Laramie, schools, food producers, distributors, and organizations sharing similar values. Through existing infrastructure in schools and the Valley, we can offer students more locally produced lunch options, support food distribution to struggling families, and ensure that a healthy, happy community persists into the future. Really, as we'll see, the school population might be the best entry point for tackling challenges related to poor eating habits. Quick note, when thinking about poor eating habits, we are not just talking about unhealthy food choices, but also those reliant on distant, large-scale food manufacturers. 20% of Laramie's population are of school age. Just over 4,000 of these residents attend school in the Laramie Valley. 10% of these students come from families struggling with poverty, and 50% live below the middle-class threshold established by Pew Research. We think that through access to school lunch programs, we have the opportunity to reach the next generation of Larameites, helping them to create habits of healthy eating choices, learn about their local producers, and participate in the growing of produce they will then consume. Thus, we propose community gardens on school grounds, locally sourced lunches for students, and locally sourced produce for food outreach programs. On this slide, we've tracked the power and attitude of stakeholders. So you'll see that on one end, the positive attitude with much power, potentially, are school administrators, parents and students, and Laramie Valley food producers. Contrast that with lower power and a negative attitude of potential, what we'll call concerned citizens, those who may be concerned about school expenditures or state expenditures on schools and school lunches. With negative power and a lot of, with negative attitude and a lot of power, we've placed food representatives for major food producers. Think about Tyson, those people who may have signed contracts and stand to lose if schools partner with local producers, contrasting with them the positive attitude, but also with little power, other local community organizations with shared values, such as the farmers market or Feeding Laramie Valley. This is not to say that they lack power, just that they may lack power in terms of our specific program. When thinking about not just maintaining social bonds, but building new social bridges, we will utilize the communication continuum as included in some of the lectures and resources contained in this coursework. And this allows us some understanding in how to engage when there is shared or no shared meaning, how filters and well springs work, and employing techniques that we've learned in class, such as being specific, taking responsibility, being adaptable, checking for accuracy, and listening actively and empathetically. As an example, with our low power, but with a lot of potential power, concerned citizen, we might suggest that investment in the program now will save tax dollars down the road in a few years in increased learning outcomes, a healthier community, or less frequent utilization of health services. Instead of telling these stakeholders that they are wrong or don't care about youth, we create shared meaning by engaging their filter. They may be concerned about responsible state expenditures. So, for example, we focused on cost analysis and benefits. Coalitions. Definitely. We will seek out fellow travelers among the groups engaged in existing organizations like Feeding Laramie Valley, the Farmers Market, Laramie Rivers Conservation, or other groups who can lend their muscle, organizational expertise, experience, advice and counsel, and their social bridges. My view of our community issue is one where only through the sustained effort of multiple disparate stakeholders can we achieve lasting change. Thus, coalitions are necessary. For long-term volunteers, we plan on engaging retirees through local places that they congregate. To that end, I think we'll rely on both long-term and short-term volunteers. Each will bring strengths and weaknesses. Long-term, as said, retirees and those who share our values. Short-term, we're looking towards college campuses and their existing social networks. For short-term volunteers, we will emphasize short-term projects and the goal of a well-defined job accomplished. We will rely on the social networks of our core community group, enlisting folks, college faculty, and students, as well as those engaged in life changes, for those events, such as monthly food distribution, that require a larger labor group. For these, we will reward both their sense of duty and their immediate needs with snacks and drinks. We will also hold a celebration dinner every spring. For longer term, we will encourage these folks to avoid the sense of closed ownership and be open to new ideas. And by constantly engaging diverse people to join our efforts, we will also avoid burnout by tapping strengths, avoiding tasking folks with jobs for which they are ill-suited, while providing opportunity for success and growth. I think my most important learning from the work of the semester, and to be fair, the course structure supported the kind of learning that builds and creates genuinely new understanding, so this particular example cannot live in isolation, but it is the thing I find myself pondering most often, and it is represented by the image taken from Dr. Steinman's PowerPoint from week 8, and that is, the communication is key. When building and maintaining social networks, when gaining support for your vision, when framing an issue, communication is free. Thus, we have to understand how to communicate if we are to be successful. This is what I take, whether later to engage in community leadership or organization building, or into the classroom where I use this in class to get my future teachers thinking about how they communicate with their students, their peers, and their communities. I included some pictures that I liked but didn't quite fit. I have put references here, including those photos that were not public domain. Thank you for your time and for an edifying learning experience. This was a top-notch class.